Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us this evening and sitting down to chat about your business.
Yeah, I'm excited.
If you want to introduce yourself and kind of tell the listeners what it is you exactly do.
Yeah, so my name is Lizanne. I live in the Minneapolis area, and right now I am a Minnesota travel and lifestyle blogger, I call myself. So you can kind of get on Instagram, and I do have my own website. Right now I'm exploring a great state of Minnesota, and I travel around the whole state with my boyfriend, and we just love to get in the car and go whenever we can. Um, and so right now I'm just again exploring our own backyard and finding new and cool things to do, and it never ceases to amaze me how many cool things keep popping up and how many cool businesses keep getting started. And so that's just the goal, is to highlight them. And yeah, it's been a journey.
So you're primarily traveling throughout, is it Minnesota? I think that's how you maybe started, but have you since branched out and you are traveling
Yeah.
the world?
So yeah, that's a great question. I did start in Minnesota. I actually started my blog beginning of 2019, and that was when I like officially announced, like, hey, I have a blog. I'm gonna kind of work on this. And I think at the time I was still figuring out what Instagram was and like what you could do with it. So I kind of count 2019 as my trial and error year. But then funny enough, 2020 happened, and we all know what happened then. So it made us stay close to home. And I kind of already had this footing in Minnesota. So I was like, you know what? My niche just kind of fell into place. And I was like, I'm just gonna stick in Minnesota, and I'm just gonna explore everything we have to offer. In May of 2020, actually let go from my job. My whole job completely like, went under with COVID. So it was kind of
Oh,
a blessing in disguise. I know. So I took the summer off, and I actually I started working with a lot of lodging companies and places in Minnesota, just to like highlight and work and be like, hey, let me show you how you guys are still open and your COVID protocols, and how we safely travel without being scared. And that kind of launched it a little bit into, exploring new neighborhoods, new towns, new lodging, and things like that. And I just kind of went with it, and I stuck to that. And I'd say now I feel like I've gone around the state quite a bit. And so this summer is, I was kind of putting a little bit more focus Midwest
okay.
with driving. So it's kind of like more road trippy. We in 2021 we did a drive out to Arizona, my boyfriend and I, and we did like Route 66 and like did a whole stop on it. And we just like fell in love with being in the car and like road trips and stopping and having that, flexibility of just having the journey and not just the destination. And so we've been doing a lot of road trips this summer, a lot of like South Dakota, Omaha, Iowa, Wisconsin. So we've just been driving around, and I'm kind of slowly integrating to do more Midwest.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I want to go back to something that you said when we went to that first lodge
hmm
to ask them, like, could you write about them, let them know you're open.
hmm
What did you have a lot of like sales or blogging experience before that, or can you take us through that process of almost
Yeah.
like a cold call sales walk-in a way?
Yeah, absolutely. So at that time, I think I wasn't really making money at the time. So I would say 2019 was again my trial and error year. It was a lot of just like trade collabs, whether free product gifted, free stays, and but it gave me a chance to kind of work on my content that way too. What works, what doesn't, and what does my audience want to see. I think the biggest thing too is like knowing your audience and knowing what they want to see versus just like what you want to showcase. And I think that is a learning process as well, because you're always getting new people. So I kind of took a step back, but I would say up until then, nothing was really paid. And even summer of 2020, everything was probably just trade and commission that way. But it kind of helped because I had my blog, I had my Instagram, and I had a Facebook. So I had these different mediums and different channels. I can like, hey, I can create content for XYZ. And with that too, I offer images. So, like, hey, I can shoot for you your images on social media. And it was kind of a team effort too. But fun enough, with the lodges I pitched in 2020, I never cold pitched anyone. I had a working relationship before. And I think
Okay.
that's one thing, like one of my things instilled in me is like, very rarely do I cold pitch anyone. I
Mm.
always try to build a relationship with them first. And then that way they kind of get to know who I am, and I get to know who they as a business side, but also as like a human side, and see, if we jive and if we, and so the lodging worked with, was a lot in Grand Marais, and I've been going there for years. So I kind of created these relationships already, and through word of mouth and knowing people and introducing each other, that's kind of how I started pitching. But very rarely do I cold pitch because yeah, I want to build that relationship first.
Sure.
Can you
That's a
talk?
really good tip though. I think a lot of people, sorry, Matt, I think a lot of people maybe not realize like trade is an option of like, what's how I'm, not yet making money off of this. How do I start to build that relationship up, or like a two-way street? How could that work? And yeah, that's just a really good tip for our listeners or anybody that's thinking about starting blogging. Think about trade.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, that's a good point, Ryan. I like that. So can you talk about the process then of building that relationship? Because I imagine that so now that you're venturing outside of Minnesota and beyond your comfort zone, right? You're going to the Midwest, you're going to end up at a lodge that maybe you've never been at. What is your process on how you're going to build that relationship with that lodge?
Yep.
To then be able to then not have to cold pitch them.
Yep. Absolutely. So that kind of funny because that's kind of the tricky situation right now. And I think even with that, I do try to have a good part of it. Since mostly right now it's what I'm doing is on Instagram. I hope to expand that, but that's on a whole nother conversation. So since it's on Instagram, I basically search and research and kind of vet these lodging places, and I have it in my head. So let's say it's February, March, or April, and I want to go to South Dakota in the fall. I'm already looking at these places on Instagram or Airbnb or Facebook and seeing well, first, do they do Instagram? Because that's kind of my bread and butter right now. And if they don't, then what's the point? Perfect example, we love to go to Door County. A lot of places in Door County are mom and pop places. They don't even have an Instagram. So it just doesn't make sense for me to work with them. So I'm trying to see what value I can bring them to, whether, it's just social media exposure or even photography or just content for their page too. Hey, I worked with a couple of lodging places too, and they have a social media presence, but they are so swamped because all small business owners, it's a busy season, we're swamped. I even give them content or images, and I give them social media prompts. I'm hey, I took these photos of XYZ, here's some examples of what you could even just say on social media when you post, whether it's the different kind of flowers they have in their garden, or hey, did you know we have free bike and kayak rentals? So it's little things where just gives them a little push, and it helps them too, versus just offering it one-sided.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have really good photography on your Instagram. So for those listening now, what's your Instagram handle?
Lizanne lately.
Okay. So yeah, for those of you that are listening, check it out right now and listen to the podcast while you're on her Instagram account. But do you just use your phone, or do you use just for the quality of images? It's
yes. Really I will say, since reels are the hot thing now, that's all with my iPhone. But I did get a new camera end of last year, so I've been kind of working and playing with that. We kind of went the mirrorless route, so we all have my boyfriend and I, we have Canon mirrorless cameras right now, so it's been fun. And we have a drone and we play around with that too, so it's just fun. We get new toys and play around with media and again have fun with it.
Yeah, that's the most important part.
Yeah.
So why blogging? What about blogging? Have you always been a writer?
No.
What prompted you into that?
It's crazy because I am not a writer. I am the farthest from it. I think if you ask my friends too, and if you read my blog, you will read it as if I'm talking directly to you. That's my I actually look up to travel writers and other bloggers who just have an effortless way with words, and that's just not me. But I write is how I talk. But way back when I was actually traveling for my job, I would go to all these places and they're hey, you should write about it. You should blog. And I was no. And I didn't think of anything, but I had a lot of friends and family who just kept kind of egging me and pushing me, you should do this. But funny enough, I went to school for fashion merchandising. So at the time I was considering it, fashion blogs were huge then. They still are now, but they were really big. So I thought style and fashion blogging was my only option, and I didn't want to do that. And so I kind of bridged the gap. And even some of my first posts were about style and even local clothing shops, things like that. But it was a good starting point and a good practice. But the one thing I love about blogging is I own it. It's mine. So, if Facebook goes away, if Instagram goes away. If any other thing, like I own my blog and it's my website and I have it and I keep it. And that's why I keep it around. I know a lot of people don't go that route anymore, but I think it's important to have something that you own where anything can change in an instant, but I still have that.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
So you mentioned that you were in fashion merchandising. Was that pre-COVID layoff? And
Yeah, that was, so I went to school for it. I went to St. Kate's in St. Paul actually I did my 4 years there, and I actually moved out to Los Angeles here. Did
oh
some more
wow,
school there. Yeah, did some more school there. And then I just kind of worked around in different retail settings, and I slowly transitioned kind of like my retail side into a community-based position roles with other companies. I turned it into not just like working at a retail store, like hosting their store events and like building community with the customers and things like that. And I found a passion in that. And then right before COVID, I was a community manager at actually a co-working space, but they closed down. And again, I kind of used it as an opportunity to just, hey, let's put all like my eggs in my own basket and go for it. And so, however, as small business owners who are listening to this probably know, it's really hard.
yeah,
And so I ended up having to go back and get a job, which I'm super grateful for though. I started part-time, and last October I went full-time. So I do have a full-time job as well.
okay. What is your, we'll call it the 9 to 5 today?
Yep. Funny enough, I am back to fashion and I'm a stylist. So
Oh,
I'm a full-time stylist for Stitch Fix actually. So the one thing I love about it is it's 100% remote and it's 100% flexible. So that's why it's like the perfect match with what I want to do, because it gives me the flexibility to go and work anywhere I want. And my boss is great and I love her. And so it's been, if I had to have a job, like this would be it. It's great.
for what you blog about, I'm just really curious about, what dictates your blogging. Is it your followers like reaching out to you saying, oh, have you been here, you should check it out, kind of like
Hmm.
what you said your family did, like kind of egging you
Yep.
on? Or
Yeah.
is it just like, yeah, just the type of research, if you could talk about that you put into like where in Minnesota you
Hmm.
want to travel, like what you think your followers would like to see? Or is it vice
Hmm.
versa? Is that what you like, and just like
Yep.
your followers will like it?
I think it's a good mix of both, honestly. I will have people like email me or DM me and say like, hey, have you been here or check this place out? And they'll send me cool places to check out, which I love recommendations because I mean, again, we're only one person and we can only do so much research, but
Right.
so it's a lot of like recommendations from followers or friends and family, and then also half of what I want to do too. But I think the nice thing is my audience is very similar to me. So it's kind of nice that, I'm like in my 30s and have a partner and like we don't have kids, and you can kind of see that from my page. Like I don't have kids, I don't do family travel, I don't have a dog, but I do. It's a lot of my followers have dogs, so it's like I incorporate little things with what my followers have too that'll make it easy for them. So even though I don't have kids, if I go to a place that's family friendly, I'll mention that, and
Mhm.
or if they're dog friendly, I'll mention that. So it's a good half of recommendations and what I want to do, but I always cater it to my audience for what they can get out of it versus just like, hey, here's me having a good time. I always want to try to make it valuable and relatable to them too.
Mhm. Yeah, I loved your series when you were in Omaha, where you went to the College World Series.
Yeah.
You just, pictures of you're there having a good time at the baseball games, but
Hmm.
you also went around Omaha, and
Yep.
it's what you think your followers, type of lodges and resorts and restaurants in that area. So
Yep.
that was a cool mix. I was following you pretty closely there because I'm a
Oh,
baseball
thanks.
fan.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
yeah,
It's so fun. We do that like every year. So it's one of our favorite things.
awesome.
Yeah.
So Omaha in the baseball game, that looked like a blast.
Yep.
And my question is, what do you do if you have a negative experience? Have you ever come across that? And do you,
Yes.
how honest you?
Hmm. Yep. So that is $1 million question. For me, I am very careful about how I portray it if I do. Usually if it's a negative experience, if I'm out and about and it's like if it's not a partnership or it's just not an experience, I just won't include it. I just won't include it. I also think negativity breeds negativity, so I try to keep it out of that. Or if I have, a bad experience, maybe I'll just say like, opt out of doing this, or like, hey, do this, but not this. Not like I had a horrible time here. But for example, I worked with a hotel once, and it was actually through their corporate office. And the place that we went to, I was supposed to showcase and everything. And we're in the Midwest and they're on the West Coast. And so they have no idea. And I came and I just said, like, it's just not good. And they were super grateful too. They're like, this is not our standard. We're so sorry. Like, don't worry about doing anything. And I thought that was nice too. Cause like, I never want to lie. I'm not going to lie and say, this is great. And it was horrible. I think too, like, I've done glamping or camping, and maybe some things weren't as great as I hope they would be, but I let people know that in just like kind of like a non-emotional way. Be like, here's the straight facts, take it what you want.
Right.
And if, like, hey, if you don't want to, go to the bathroom in an outhouse, that's what it is. Things like that.
Yeah.
But I tiptoe very carefully around that, because again, I've just seen how negativity can again affect creators and bloggers, and I just try not to be.
Sure. So it's definitely part of your lifestyle, blogging. Are you monetizing your blog yet? Are you still doing trade?
So I'm monetizing more so on my Instagram. And with that, it's more so Instagram collaborations. However, my blog will kind of go into that as well. So if I'm working with like a lodging place or a tourism board, they'll usually want like Instagram deliverables or Instagram content, and I kind of throw in like my blog with it. And it's just kind of I call it a bundle, if you will. Be like, hey, we want one Instagram post for XYZ. And I'm like, great. Well, I can do a blog post, an Instagram, a Facebook post, here's some images for this amount of money. So I always try to bundle it up to get the best bang for their buck too, and to have it kind of fit both. But yes, I would say actually holiday of 2020 was when I first started making money. So I was like, okay, I can do this. So it's been really exciting. And yeah, so right now, but I would say majority of my income comes from Instagram collaborations.
Okay. That's really interesting. And thanks for sharing that too. So I'm just putting my shoes of somebody listening that wants to start a blog. And obviously it takes a lot of time to blog and travel, grow your following. And you just mentioned it of, maybe what is that point where this is a good idea, be a long-term goal. Maybe that is when you said in 2020 you first started making money. So like, hey, this could be too.
It's really excited when you start too, and you start to value your worth, because I think in the social media world, like everyone says, content is king. And if you're making beautiful content, like you should be compensated for it, especially, with a brand or with a company. And I think especially if there's any bloggers or creators who want to get started, I'm a huge advocate of actually like getting paid for your work. Even if it's not a lot, I think there's a huge misconception too in the industry where a lot of brands do take advantage of other people. And so I'm like one of the biggest advocates about getting paid for your work, and especially if it's great and you have a story to tell. And I feel like everyone's unique. So that's kind of one of my big strong points this year, is helping other people get paid too.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Do you have a schedule as far as how often you're posting blogs? What do you aim for?
Oh, that's a good question, because what I aim for is never what happens. But I would say I try to schedule it out. I try to be as consistent as possible. But however, I feel like this year especially this summer, I'm giving myself some grace. If I'm not feeling like posting and I don't want to be on Instagram that day, I won't be. Because as much as I love social media, I also feel like social media is kind of detrimental to your mental health sometimes. So it's okay to take a break. It's okay to take a step back. However, I know it gets frustrating if you stop posting. Instagram, will be like, hey, you're not posting, we're not going to show your stuff to anyone. But I would say I try to get into a consistent schedule, whether it's, at least 3 to 4 times a week. I would love to post every day, but it just doesn't happen. But I'm trying to be more realistic and also kind with myself. As for blogs, I would love to post more. I think, again, with Instagram, since I am making more money on Instagram than with my blog, that is taking precedent. However, I would love to post more blogs and just get more strategy towards that. But again, it kind of ebbs and flows. And I think summer's busy, and I feel like everyone's busy in the summer too. So
Very.
it kind of goes with the season.
So I got one more question in regards to
Yeah.
that. So like when you write out a blog, do you break that out then and like take maybe one blog post and then break it down for your Instagram into like, let's say 10 pieces from this blog?
Yep.
Okay.
So yes, in a sense, yes, I love to repurpose content. So let's say I have one trip I did. Let's take Omaha, for example. I'm actually working on Omaha content right now. So I will take that into like a things to do in Omaha blog. And I will break that down into things to do in Omaha, like a whole Omaha itinerary. I'll break that into like things to do in Omaha, places to eat and drink, coffee shops in Omaha. Like I'll break that down. And then that's just for blogs. And then you can break it down into like an Instagram reel or a Pinterest pin or a Facebook post. And so I am all about repurposing content and working smarter, not harder. So I do that sometimes, especially with Grammary too, like dining guides or coffee shops. And I feel like when you get specific, people like that too. Because sometimes it can get lost in the mix if it's just a whole comprehensive,
Right.
here's like 100 things to do. So I do try to break it down.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
For like organizing wise, when you go to these different places, do you have, not agenda is the wrong word, but I guess topics or industries that you're going to, this area, Door County, Omaha.
Yep.
Like, okay, I'm hitting, you kind of mentioned it, like the coffee industry. If they have any lodging resort, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. So I always try to, I kind of round it out. If it's, whether it's a weekend trip or like a longer stay, I always try to showcase a lodging. And then we like to kind of hop around and drink. So we love like breweries and wineries and, distilleries. And so I always like to feature fun, cool, like local places to drink, especially Door County, a lot of wineries. And then I love to shop, so local shopping, and then cool places to eat. And I will typically do kind of like the less expensive to like a mid expensive. We rarely go out to like very fancy places because I think for me, I just want everything to be like relatable and accessible for everyone. And I'm like the farthest from a luxury blogger too. So I want people to like afford to do all these things too. But I'm always hitting up coffee shops, and I always try, depending on the season, a couple things to do outside and a couple things to do inside too. So just like, depending on what we get to, I always want to get to more. But if someone can take my weekend and make a whole itinerary based off of it, that's what I love to see.
I think that's really cool because it's a common theme that we're hearing from you too, is just staying true to yourself. And a lot of your followers are like you. So it's not like you're trying to go somewhere
Right.
where you wouldn't go. Like you're really comfortable. This is, you're blogging, but you're also having a good time with your family at the same time. So that's when I think that's just a really important tip that you just mentioned for anybody thinking about starting a blog, is not trying to please your audience or define your audience first, but make it, what's your lifestyle? What do you like to do? And then
I think it's great too, because again, like I would say 80% of my content is tailored to my audience, but 20% is to me, because you can't lose your sense of self too. But also when your audience, gets to know you and enjoys the same things, it's kind of like the perfect match. But I think too, like there's a lot of Minnesota bloggers too, and a lot of them focus on like the outdoors. Don't get me wrong, I do too, but I'm not like, people know that I am not like an avid hiker. I will not do like a 7-mile hike. I will hike to the waterfall that's like 10 minutes for a great view. But that's kind of the beauty of like what I do. Like I want everything to be accessible, and you don't have to be an avid hiker to get this view, or especially that's why I love the North Shore. You can pull off, walk like 10 minutes and have an awesome view. And so that's why I like it and I love to promote it. But that's like huge for me too, is I want everyone to be able to do it if they can.
What would you say the biggest challenge is for blogging, and how have you overcome it?
I would say this probably like everyone says this, but probably imposter syndrome, where you work so hard and you just sometimes, because there are right now a lot of Minnesota bloggers in the state, and people view that as competition. I see that there's room for everyone, but sometimes you get caught up in the moment and you ask yourself like, am I good enough? Am I doing, am I doing enough? Like I need to be doing XYZ. And I think I struggle with the balance of things too, especially working a 9 to 5, where I'm like, hey, this is hours I could spend doing other things, like getting more content, writing other blogs. So I think it's kind of like measuring up to what people expect or what I expect, but also managing my time too, and making sure I can have that time and utilize it well. And whether I'm traveling or shooting content, or it's fun, and it's fun to travel and shoot the content, but then like creating it is also another piece. So
Right.
I think it's a little bit of both of those.
You have a very large following on your Instagram. Like you mentioned, that's your kind of like, would you say that's your favorite platform right now to use? Social media?
I would say, yeah, I think it is, because I know it. I've been doing it so long where I feel comfortable in it. Not saying I would love to expand to other platforms, but I think also I would love to have a plan and strategy in place. Like I have a TikTok. I don't post regularly on TikTok. I love to consume TikTok, but right now that's just not serving me. I'm just trying to be strategic in what serves me and how I can serve my audience better. But eventually I'll get there, and I think I'll keep going on other platforms. But so Instagram's right now is kind of my bread and butter.
What's just maybe one simple tip? So somebody just started a blog, maybe they just started their Instagram blog, like you did, you kind of incorporated it. Like for growing your audience wise, beyond the hashtag and tagging, you don't have to go through your whole strategy, but like, what is one thing that you learned that like, oh, this is helpful, or I saw a good following in a short period of time by doing this, whether that's
I would say depending on your platform, like for Instagram, straight up like reels, they are pushing videos. So if you can do video content, I grew 10,000 followers in 1 month just from reels. So I mean, like it's crazy. It blew my mind. I was actually a little overwhelmed, but so Instagram video content is king right now. They are promoting that. However, if you're just starting off, keep producing content. Just keep making content and posting it. I know sometimes you'll feel weird, or it might, maybe no one's engaging. It will come. Like when I first started, nobody engaged in my stuff. It will come. It'll happen. Just, I would say, stay consistent and keep making content, because the more you do, the more you learn, and the more you learn, the more you grow.
I love that. Thanks for sharing that too. I think that's so true. Like you put out, first of all, you have to get, imposter syndrome, get beyond that. You're videoing yourself, or you're not comfortable doing video, putting yourself out there, and then you don't get any engagement. One or two times, but keep going with it. I love that.
So if I was a big blogging executive, I ran the biggest blogging company in the world, and you were interviewing with me, and I were to ask you, what do you love about blogging? How would you answer that question?
I love the people I get to connect with, whether it's online or in person. The places, first off, the experiences and the places I get to go is amazing. But first to that would be the people I connect with and the friends I make from it, because I think it's hard to make friends as an adult. But when you have other people who are creatives, not even the bloggers, they're just creatives, or they just, like to be on Instagram or social media, and you have that connection, it turns into, hey, I saw you at an event. Hey, let's have coffee together. Hey, let's go on a trip together. And, even with business owners too, like, hey, let's work together. And the connections and community that you can create online is probably like the biggest payout ever for starting it. So I wouldn't change it.
Super cool.
What usually we ask, like, what's your one piece of advice for those to kind of take that leap and pursue their passion? I want to just ask a little bit different way to you is, somebody who wants to blog, what are like the first two most important steps that they should tackle, like right away? Like, I want to blog. Now what? Now, like, what's
I would say the biggest thing, first off, so figure out your platform. Like find a website or find whatever social account you want. Maybe it's TikTok. You're like, hey, I want to be a TikToker. I want to be a YouTuber. Find your platform, and then figure out what's your passion and what you want to do. I find some people just kind of start and they want to find their niche. If you have a good idea already, start with that, because that will just kind of help fuel your fire and figure out, what you're meant to do. And I kind of use content pillars too. If like, let's say you want to start a travel blog. So find 5 content pillars. Do you want to talk about family travel, packing tips, things like that. Find some topics that'll kind of keep you going and give you ideas on how to create the content. So I would just say have a little plan in mind, but also you can stray from the plan too, when you figure out things. But I would just say figure out what platform or social account you want to start and kind of have an idea of what you want your niche to be and kind of go from there and have fun with it. And the biggest thing before you even do that, just start. It doesn't have to be perfect, just start and you will learn so much just from starting. And also you'll regret if you just hold off because you're scared. It's terrifying putting yourself out there on the internet. But coming from me, I had my LizanneLately.com domain for 2 years. And I sat on it and did not tell anyone. So, yeah, so like looking back, I regretted not starting sooner. But I'm glad I did when I did, and just throw it out there, and like your friends and family will be so supportive of you, and then you'll start to make new connections and get more friends and more community. And so just start. Don't think twice. You can learn as you go.
That's so true. Matt and I, we had this podcast ready for a year. We had the equipment.
Yep.
We had our first post ready, but we always made an excuse like it's not perfect.
Not ready.
Yep.
I'll do it next week. And yeah, once you just I wish we would have done it earlier too. But yeah, once you put yourself out there and you get that first post and you're off and running.
It lights your fire and it wants to keep going. And then, let's say you get your first comment or your first like, and it invigorates you and wants to keep going. Yeah.
So what is next for your blog? Do you have your next trip planned out, or where
we do?
At?
Yeah. So in August, we are so for the month of August, depending when you release this, we're talking August here. I am doing Michigan, Wisconsin, up north again, and South Dakota.
Okay.
So we got a lot planned. The fall, I think we're gonna try to do North Dakota. We're gonna go up north again, maybe Illinois. We'll see. But lots of Midwest road trips planned, and some fun lodging and some fun towns and new places to discover and new places to explore. So again, I think I'm focusing more on Midwest now, but Minnesota is near and dear. So of course I'll throw some in there as well.
If you plan on going to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, the UP, let me know. My wife is from there and we go there.
No way.
Yeah.
Well, I'm actually going to Ironwood.
Yeah, town just past there.
Perfect. Well, we're gonna connect then, and I'm gonna get some recommendations from you.
Yep, some good coffee shops, some good boating areas, and
love it. Yep.
Things, yeah.
I'm excited. Yeah, I've never been over there, so this will be my first time.
Awesome. Yeah, let me know before you go there. We'll definitely.
Cool.
Last thing.
Cool. Yeah.
Is if anybody that's listening wants to go out and find you, how do they find your blog? How do they find your IG?
Yep. So I'm on Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, and online, all at Lizanne Lately. It's Lizanne, and then Lately, Lately. So pretty across the board, pretty much the same. So you can't miss it.
Perfect.
Right.
This was awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. This was so much fun. Hopefully people can get some good tips or tidbits, but also if anyone has any questions, my DMs on Instagram or even my email, they're always open. I'm always happy to chat, and I love just chatting life and small and entrepreneurship and all the things. So I'm always open.
Love it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for your time.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much. It's great to be here.